Welcome back, all my fight fans, and welcome to the second annual MMA Mystic MMA Awards. I did this last year for the first time, so we're doing it again this year, and you can expect these every single year. There will be some redundancies from the videos that I just made on the top 10 fights and the top 10 knockouts of the year, so a little bit of spoilers if you guys already watched those videos, but I will be also covering the biggest upset of 2025, the biggest comeback of 2025, the best male and female fighters of the year, the best submission of the year. I didn't make a video for the top 5 or top 10 submissions of the year, so I'll list for you guys some of my favorite submissions of 2025 in this video, my analyst of the year, my gym of the year, and stuff like that. So if you guys like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends to help boost this channel and the algorithm. And with that all out of the way, let's get into the first award. So kicking us off, I thought we would start with the biggest upset of 2025. For me, this was the fight that shocked me the most when the other guy won. For me, it was Peyton Talbot taking on Barcelos. Barcelos is an old, crafty Brazilian veteran. I believe he was 39 at the time that he took this fight against Peyton Talbot. Nobody really expected him to win. Peyton Talbot came into this fight as, I believe, a minus 1,000 favorite, something like that. Peyton Talbot is, I think, 25 or 26 years old. Coming into this fight, he had an undefeated record. He seemed to be knocking out everybody. He seemed to have real, legitimate one-punch knockout power at 135, which is incredibly rare. He also seems to have a very, very high fighting IQ. And going into this fight, everybody kind of took him to win. Barcelos took him down and smothered him. He showed him that old school style of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, very, very classic style, which he imposed on Talbot there, kind of just smothering him, holding the position, slowly moving into the next thing, and kind of just showed Talbot that there's levels to the grappling game. And then Talbot, later that year, comes back against Henry Cejudo and out-wrestles the Olympic gold medalist. So we saw that Talbot can rebound against stuff like this. He can evolve. He can develop himself. He can become more. A loss like this isn't going to set him back too much. In fact, it's going to make him stronger. So that was a good thing to see. I want Talbot to do good things in the sport. Somebody like Barcelos is not going to win a belt. I'm pretty confident in saying that. This guy's kind of on his way out, so you always want to see the young guys do better. But for me, this was the biggest upset of the year, and it was one that I'm glad happened because it made Talbot into a stronger fighter. Next up, we have comeback of the year. So this was the biggest comeback in a fight. A fighter who was down, seeming like they were going to lose, and then at the end of the fight, they're the ones getting their hand raised, and you're like, what the heck happened? How did he survive that? How did he come back? For me, there was two fights that I was kind of picking between. The first one was Jiri Prochazka coming back against Khalil Rountree. I thought Khalil Rountree was really putting it on him those first two rounds. It seemed like he was winning the fight. And then Jiri made it chaotic. He kind of brought that old Jiri style back in. He kind of remembered who he was, started to make things chaotic, and he won that fight. He got that beautiful left hook, finished it up with a little bit of ground and pound, and came back in that fight. It was spectacular, but for me, it wasn't the most impressive comeback of the year. There was one more that topped it for me, and for me, that was Jared Cannonier coming back against Gregory Rodriguez. He got knocked down twice, I believe, in the first round. I believe it was twice he got knocked down, and he was eating some huge shots at the beginning of the fight. Even in the second and third round, he was still eating some big shots. But in that fourth round, Jared Cannonier, the iron-willed Cannonier, comes back and devastatingly knocks out Gregory Rodriguez in the fourth round. So to get knocked down twice, to look like you're about to go completely unconscious in the first round, to knocking the other guy out a couple rounds later, that for me is a huge comeback. And just what a way to put an exclamation mark on that fight and say, no, I'm winning this shit. I'm the one who's going to come out with my hand raised. I'm knocking you out, buddy. Fantastic performance by Cannonier. I love that guy so much. He's an absolute warrior, and for sure, he's built different, that guy. Next up, we have the Analyst of the Year award. I'm not going to give out like a color commentary award or anything like that. I'm not going to go over, who covers MMA the best. I don't really watch any coverage outside of like the regular broadcasts and stuff like that. I'll watch the post-fight interviews, some of the pre-fight interviews, maybe the press conference, but outside of that, I don't watch, Nina drama or anything like that. I'm not really into that scene. I don't watch MMA Guru. In fact, I kind of made this channel to be the opposite of that guy's channel because he always seems to be negative and shitting on people all the time. So I don't really watch MMA content outside of the UFC itself. And I'm only going to be sticking to Analyst of the Year this year. And I'm going to pick Michael Bisping. I know it's boring because he's won it like how many years in a row now, but for me, he's the best analyst by far. Like, you get Joe Rogan and DC on the pay-per-view, and it's like a podcast. They're just, joking around, not really paying attention. Sometimes Joe is like super, super biased on fighters, and you're like, man, this is just like unlistenable. I have to put it on mute. It's not as bad as it used to be, but there was a couple years there where Joe's bias was so bad I could not listen to it at all. Daniel Cormier is great, especially when he's not with Joe, having Joe distract him all the time. I think Daniel Cormier is better on his own. But Michael Bisping is the one guy who is always consistent. He's always focused. He's always providing useful commentary. He's also funny at the right times. When he makes jokes, it's about like things happening in the fight, not things that happened outside or that are semi-related to the fight like Joe Rogan tends to do. Everything that Bisping says that's funny has something to do with the actual fight, usually. So I just find Bisping to be the most concentrated out of all of them. He has the best personality out of all of them. I feel like he's got a great mind for MMA. Sure, he might not have the wrestling expertise or the jiu-jitsu expertise of Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier, but I still find that he provides very, very useful analysis throughout the fights. And, there's better guys out there. Maybe Dominic Cruz has the better MMA mind, but it gets grating to listen to Dominic Cruz sometimes. He's sometimes very negative, or he's just very, he's like a moody teenager sometimes, I find. So I love Bisping. He's my favorite. He's who I'm picking for analyst of. Next up, we have the best fight card of the year, and I'm going to do something a little bit special for this one. I'm going to give you guys my best fight card, top to bottom of the entire year, and then my best main card of the year, because I think that the two, I can give different answers for both. So for me, the best fight card, top to bottom, throughout the entire year was UFC 314. So here are some of the fights that were on it. So UFC 314 kicked off with a tremendous women's fight that ended in a second round submission. Then we had a war between Tulio and Gore, which ended in a second round knockout. Then a split decision between Suma Darji and Mitch Raposo, which was a very, very fun fight. Then you had Mikhail Olasejic knocking out Cedric Dumas in the first round. After that, Julian Erosa knocks out Darren Elkins in the first round. Then you have Chase Hooper and Jim Miller. Pretty fun fight. Then you had Giradonia, I can never say her name right, I apologize, versus Yaon Xiaoyan, another really, really fun women's fight. And then we had Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson, which ended in a third round KO for Dan Ige. This was a very, very fun fight, very back and forth, and Dan Ige knocking out the much, much taller Sean Woodson was very fun to watch. Then you had the Dominic Reyes KO over Krylov, one of my top KOs of the entire year, a first round left hook knockout, beautiful to watch. Then you had Jean Silva choking out the Nazi lover Bryce Mitchell in the second round. Love to see that. That was so fantastic. I love when he yelled in his face like, F you stupid Nazi. And then in the next fight, we had Yair Rodriguez defeating Patricio Pitbull, a huge upset and a very, very fun fight. Then you had Paddy Pimblett defeating Michael Chandler. Third round KO for Paddy Pimblett. That was a very electrifying fight as well. And then in the main event, you had one of the fights of the year between Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopez. Just absolutely frenetic and chaotic from start to finish, and definitely one of my favorite fights of the entire year. So for me, that was the best fight card of the entire year from top to bottom, if you're considering all the fights on the card. But I think there was a main card that was slightly better. And for me, UFC 322 had the best main card of the entire year. Here were the fights that were on it. So the first fight of the main card was a brutal 16-second knockout in the first round from Benoit Saint-Denis over Beneil Dariush. This was so much fun to watch. You watch these guys go out there, both put their chin on the line, start throwing heavy leather from the first second, and it's Benoit Saint-Denis that gets the better end of it, knocking out Dariush very, very quickly. That was super exciting. Then we move on to our next fight where we had Carlos Prates knocking out in the second round Leon Edwards. Two of the best strikers in this division by far, elite talents, and they go out there, have a very, very close round. You could arguably say Leon Edwards won the first round, and then in the second round, Prates stalks him, walks him down, pops him right in the face, sits him down, and it was a beautiful, beautiful cross knockout in that one. Then in our next fight, we had an even more impressive performance when Marias knocked out Sean Brady in the first round. Sean Brady was looking like he was going to challenge for a title soon. An elite guy on the ground, so well-rounded. Fantastic jiu-jitsu, obviously, but also great hands and pretty good on the feet. But Marias, just so much bigger than him, so much more power. And for me, this guy's the most talented boxer at 170. I know everybody's on about Jack Della Maddalena. We'll talk about him in a second here because he lost to Islam Makhachev on this card. But for me, Moraes is the most impressive boxer at 170 and one of the most impressive boxers in the entire sport. And he went out there and showed it against Sean Brady, knocking him out so cleanly in that first round. He just stalked him, walked him down, and landed the shot he wanted to land. And then in the next two fights, you had two masterful championship performances. Maybe these weren't the most exciting fights for people, but because Valentina Shevchenko and Islam Makhachev are two of my favorite fighters on the entire planet, I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed Valentina Shevchenko knocking back Weili Zhang in an absolutely dominant performance. I did not think it was going to be that one-sided, but she absolutely smothered Weili Zhang. Made it look like she was not even in her weight class or league at all. And just a shutout performance by Shevchenko. I loved watching that. And then Islam Makhachev shutting out Jack Della Maddalena using his superior wrestling, but also some superior technique on the feet. I mean, I think he outstruck Jack Della Maddalena throughout the fight as well. And it was so impressive to watch Islam Makhachev reach another level in his career, win his second belt. And what a fun fight card. So for me, UFC 322 is my favorite main card of the entire year, but like I said, there's probably some bias in there because I'm such big fans of Shevchenko and Makhachev, but the other three fights, pick another three fights in succession that were better in 2025. I don't think you can name three better fights in a row than when Saint-Denis, Prates, and Moraes all got knockouts, all spectacular knockouts, all super flashy and entertaining knockouts, all knockouts against big, high-level fighters. You know, Beneil Dariush, Leon Edwards, Sean Brady. These are big guys. These are big names. These are guys who, if they won, they might be in line for a title shot. So it was just a fantastic card all around. Next up, we're going to give away an award for Submission of the Year. This, for me, was the most impressive submission of the entire year, and there's so many different ways you could have went with this, so I'm going to give two honorable mentions that I think are right there along with my first pick. Like, really, you can change any of these out any given day of the week. For me, my number one pick is just the one that gave me the most satisfaction. So my honorable mentions are Makhachev over Moicano. This was in the first round, early in January, and Makhachev really didn't have any competition in this fight. Really, like, there was that one little slip knockdown that he had where it looked like maybe he got knocked down or maybe he slipped or something. That little hiccup, and then after that, it was just he grabbed Moicano, dragged him to the ground, and put on a beautiful Darce choke. He honestly has maybe the best Darce choke in all of UFC history, I would say, Islam Makhachev, the way he grabs that forearm for extra leverage instead of the kind of the pit of the arm there. I think it's absolutely beautiful. He's made me readjust the way I put on Darce chokes when I do jiu-jitsu. So I've learned a lot from Makhachev, especially his chokes, and I thought he put on a brilliant one here against Moicano. Another brilliant choke was the Darce choke that Merab put on O'Malley. This was another beautiful Darce choke, cinched it up on O'Malley, got the finish. First fight was a little bit closer. First fight went to a decision. I'm sure Merab didn't like that. So second fight, he comes out there, finishes O'Malley, puts the staple on that trilogy. I doubt they'll ever fight again. And another spectacular submission. But for me, my favorite submission of the year was when Jean Silva submitted the Nazi. I love watching Nazis get submitted. It's just, I don't know, it feels good. It feels good to watch POSs like Bryce Mitchell get submitted. He was going on all year about how he loved Hitler and he didn't think Hitler did anything wrong and blah, 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 blah. And the whole year I'm like, please feed this guy to the dogs. Like, give him Francis Ngannou or someone. They give him Jean Silva, which is the next best thing. An absolute savage, a dog, right? This guy hops up on the cage and barks at his opponents. He's a very aggressive, violent fighter. I thought he was going to go on there and get the knockout, but he goes in there and submits the guy, which is what Bryce Mitchell is good at, right? He's a submission threat guy. So he goes in there and beats him at his own game and submits him pretty easily. So it's a fight like this where I'm like, really, is Bryce Mitchell going to do anything at this weight class? Like, if he's getting beaten that easily by Jean Silva, and then Jean Silva goes and loses to Diego Lopez, and Diego Lopez has lost to Volkanovski, like, I just don't see Bryce Mitchell getting anywhere close to the belt. Maybe he'll do it in a different weight class, but It feels so good to watch a guy who loves Nazis get submitted and then have a guy bark in his face like that. Fantastic. Loved that submission. That was my submission of the year. Next up is knockout of the year. And I'll go over this one a little bit quicker only because I already made my top 10 knockouts of 2025 video. You guys can go check that out if you guys want to see my entire list and see me talk a little bit more about the knockout of the year. But my honorable mentions for this one are my number 2 and 3 pick from the top 10 video. That's, of course, Pico versus Murphy and Prates versus Neal. Both were spinning back elbow knockouts. I think the Prates one was a little bit cleaner on the surface, like just what happened, but the Murphy one was more consequential. He knocked out a much more difficult opponent. Pico is a much higher level guy than Jeff Neal is, so you can take your pick there. Both of them were fantastically impressive, but for me, there was one technique that was thrown in 2025 that was just even more beautiful than a spinning back elbow, and that was the wheel kick thrown by Mauricio Ruffi to knock out Bobby Green at the end of the first round. I think that fight happened earlier in the year, and it was spectacular to watch. You know, I had money, I think, on Ruffi winning by first round KO, and I thought, oh, maybe I should have went second round. Oh no, maybe Bobby Green's too good of a striker. He's going to push this to the second round, and then spins on him and knocks him out so cleanly. My second favorite wheel kick knockout behind the Barboza one, where he put the guy into rigor mortis and his body was like frozen. That's my favorite one. But my second favorite one of all time is Mauricio Ruffi just spinning around the world and whipping that heel across Bobby Green's forehead and knocking him out. That was so clean. The cleanest technique I saw all year, I think, and that's my knockout of the year. Next up is the Fight of the Year award. So again, if you guys want to see me gush about these fights a little bit more, you guys can go watch my top 10 fights of 2025 video. My honorable mentions are going to be Merab versus Umar and Jiri versus Roundtree. Those were kind of my number 2 and number 3 picks in my top 10 video. I think the Merab-Umar fight was just so damn close. I had it 3 rounds to 2 for Merab. Both of these guys are 2 of the most well-rounded fighters on the entire planet. Both of them can wrestle at an elite level. Both of them can strike at an elite level. Both of them have incredibly high gas tanks, like incredible gas tanks. Umar as well. I know everybody talks about Merab, but Umar also has a great gas tank. Both of them have great fighting IQs, and this fight it was a perfectly balanced fight. You also take into consideration that Umar broke his hand in the first round, and I really want to see this fight ran back because it was so damn close, even with that broken hand. And yeah, that was really fun. Jiri versus Roundtree, that was my comeback of the year, obviously. Super fun fight, back and forth. Both guys had times where they looked like they were going to win it, and then obviously Jiri wins it there in the third round. And my fight of the year, my absolutely favorite fight of the entire year, again, go watch my video if you want to see me gush about this even more, but I think it's the most impressive UFC performance I've ever seen in my life, and that's Merab Dvalishvili being overtaken by Petr Yan at the end of the year. This was the last pay-per-view fight card of 2025, and what a way to close out the year, because Petr Yan's been one of my favorite fighters for years now. If you guys know, I think that situation with Aljo is just absolute bullshit. I think Aljo was acting. It was the most disgraceful thing I've ever seen inside the octagon, truly. Like, way worse than Khabib jumping the cage and trying to fight Dylan Dennis. That doesn't even compare to what Aljo did in that Yan fight. That was disgusting. I hope we never see that again in the sport. But then he goes on, has the rematch with Aljo. I thought he won it. Gets robbed. And then he has the fight with O'Malley. I thought he won it, gets robbed. So it's been a very frustrating time being a fan of Petr Yan. You just feel like this guy should have multiple title defenses by now. He really should only have 1 loss on his record. It should really only be the Merab fight. That's the only fight that he's truly lost. And then he comes into the rematch and you don't think he's going to win it. You know, Merab set the takedown attempt record in the first fight. He ragdolled him. He beat him up on the feet. It was really not close at all. The second fight is almost like a mercy fight. You're almost like, okay, Yan, you've done so much. You beat guys like Figgy. Like, we're going to give you the rematch, but really nobody thinks you're going to win this. And then he goes in there and he wins it. He wins it with the most disciplined guard I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen somebody have such a disciplined guard where their fingers are literally like glued to their cheek. He beats Merab in the takedowns, which I never thought was going to happen, but he stops enough takedowns where he actually at the end of the fight has more takedowns than Merab does, which is mind-blowing. I don't know how he accomplished that. Uses the jab to break Merab's nose open. I mean, shatter it and have his nose gushing blood. And then he uses maybe 5 or 6 body kicks to really mess up Merab's body. This was another thing from the fight that really stood out to me. A lot of times guys have to drill the body like 20 to 50 times to really get that body like hurt and really mess up the other guy. And especially against a guy like Merab, who's so well built, who's so strong, it feels like it's going to take a lot of accumulated kicks or punches to the body to really affect that guy. But Jan did it with 5 well-placed kicks. That's all he needed. All he needed was 5 or 6 well-placed kicks to the liver, and he messed Merab's body up. So just the discipline Jan had in that fight, the way he fought it, the heart that he had, the grit, the determination, the cardio and stamina to keep up with Merab till the end of it. It's the most impressive performance I've ever seen inside the octagon. So for me, that was fight of the year. And yeah, I could gush about it all day long. I'll shut up for now. Next up, I want to quickly do the Women's Fight of the Year award because the women put on some fantastic performances in 2025. I don't have a list of honorable mentions to give you guys, but there were some fantastic fights. I know Natalia Silva had one that was really entertaining. But for me, the best women's fight of the year was Weili Zhang versus Tatiana Suarez. We got to see Tatiana, who was, I think, undefeated at the time, elite level wrestler. Everybody thought this girl was going to win a belt when she first came to the UFC. She had like 4 years of injuries. Horrible to see that happen to a fighter. Comes into this fight and just really didn't have a game plan for Weili Zhang. She had the grit, she had the determination, she had the chin to make it through this fight, but man, Weili Zhang is too much for anybody at that weight class. You know, any woman who wants to fight her at strawweight, good luck. Weili Zhang's going to overwhelm you. She out-wrestled Tatiana Suarez in this fight, which was so impressive. She outstruck her, obviously. She out-grappled her everywhere. It was a really dominating fight, so you might be wondering why it's a little bit higher on my list, why it's my women's fight of the year. But I just think the way Suarez fought it has to be fight of the year. I mean, she had so much grit, so much determination. She kept going forward, even though she was being beaten down badly. She kept going forward, and that's what made the fight so entertaining. I didn't see a performance like that from any other woman throughout the year. Even when Weili fought Valentina, I didn't see the same kind of, I don't give a fuck. I'm still going to go forward. I'm still going to try to fight you. I don't care if you're beating me down super badly. I'm still going to try to mess you up right now. I saw that from Tatiana in that fight, and it was some of the most heart I've ever seen from a fighter, especially a women's fighter in any women's fight ever. Dern is up there, though, because the way she won her belt last year, she showed a lot of heart and grit as well. But for me, it was the Suarez performance in defeat against Weili Zhang. That was my women's fight of the year. Now, I'm not going to do a women's KO or a women's submission of the year award. If you guys would like to see that next year, just let me know down below in the comments, and I can certainly do that. I love women's fighting. Some of my favorite fighters are women's fighters. You know, regardless of gender, Valentina Shevchenko is in my top 5 favorite fighters of all time, regardless of any gender. Like, I put her over the vast majority of male fighters. So I love women's fighting. I just didn't provide you guys with a top women's KO or top women's submission this year. I just don't feel like it's I don't feel like most people care that much. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. But I will list my women's fighter of the year, who I think is pretty clearly Valentina Shevchenko. You know, defending against Weili Zhang, the fight with Grasso, or not the fight with Grasso, the fight with Fiorot. A very, very impressive performance against her. She was the top-ranked contender in her division. I think she was 11-1 or something like that. Very impressive record from Fiorot. She was beating up everyone she came across. Super impressive striker. A lot of people thought she'd be too big for Shevchenko and finally stop her and take her belt, but Shevchenko beat back that task and did it so very efficiently. You know, that was a pretty one-sided fight she had against Fiorot. And then going up against Weili Zhang, everybody thought, you know, these are the 2 top pound-for-pound women on the planet. This has to be a close fight. Weili Zhang has to be an active fighter in this fight. You know, she was an underdog going into it, but it was a very close underdog because everybody's looking at Weili like, look at all of her power. They call her the Magnum for a reason. She might have more power than Valentina. She might even have better grappling than Valentina because we watched what she did against Suarez, but Valentina went up there and dominated her. It wasn't close at all. She won all 5 rounds, and it wasn't even close. She absolutely dominated the second best female fighter on the planet, with Nunes retired. And I would put Kayla Harrison probably third right now. We'll see what happens with her. But for me, it's Shevchenko. She had the most impressive year. She beat very, very high-level fighters, and she did it in very, very dominant fashion. And at 37 years old. Like, let's see how much longer she can keep doing this. But I thought this was probably going to be the year that she lost her belt, and it wasn't. She just goes to show why she's one of the greatest martial artists of all time. And she's one of my favorite fighters of all time. Like I said, she's in my top 5. There's very, very few fighters I enjoy watching more than Shevchenko. And for men's, you know, even though he didn't set the record, even though he didn't get that 4th title defense in the year, which would have been spectacular, I still think Merab defending his belt 3 times in 2025 qualifies him to be the male fighter of the year. So I'm giving that award to him. I just think he beat 3 insanely tough dudes throughout the year. Incredible performances against all 3 of them. You had the fight against Umar, which was so damn tough. You have a submission over Sean O'Malley, comes back in that rematch and puts a stamp on it. The first fight went to a decision. The second fight, he submits him, ends that trilogy. No trilogy happening there. And then he beats Corey Sandhagen, a very high-level, crafty guy, very difficult to fight. So, you know, Umar, Nurmagomedov, Sean O'Malley, Corey Sandhagen, that's a pretty good list of title defenses, especially having them all in the same year. So defending 3 times in a year is very impressive. We've seen Pereira do it. We've seen John Jones do it. We've seen quite a few fighters do it. I think Chuck Liddell also did it. And now Merab adds his name to that group. So it's very hard to do. You'll see a fighter do that maybe once, maybe twice in their entire career. But to have 3 title defenses in a year is very rare. And I know there's a lot of, you know, newer, maybe casual fans out there that want to see their champions defend 3-4 times a year as an average. But it's very rare for that to happen. Usually 1 to 2 title defenses is all you can kind of do. You're fighting the top guys on the planet at your weight class. These are the best people on the planet at martial arts. It's going to take a lot out of you to fight them for 25 minutes. So just shout out to Merab, man. What a tank. Like I said, I think he has the best cardio in sports. Not just in the UFC, not just in MMA, but in all of sports. I think Merab Dvalishvili has the best cardio. And I think that that's really what brought him to 3 title victories in 2025 and almost 4. Almost. But Petr Yan is, like I said, he had the most impressive performance I've ever seen in my life. It was my fight of the year and one of my favorite fights of all time. So I think we're going to wrap up there for today. If you guys want to see any categories added to next year's MMA awards, if you guys want to see me cover something else, like I said, maybe some women's submissions, top women's submission of the year, top women's knockout of the year. If you guys want to see me do any other category that maybe some of your other YouTubers or journalists cover, I could certainly do that. And hopefully next year I can find a way to kind of get around the UFC's copyright policy and show you guys some of the finishes and stoppages and some of the fights from the year, because whenever I post a video with any of the UFC's footage in the video, they tend to take it down or at least demonetize it. So we'll see. I'll hopefully get around that in the next year and provide you guys with more B-roll footage on top of these videos, not just me talking. But yeah, I hope you guys liked that video. I hope you guys got something out of it. And if you guys disagree with any of my picks today, if you guys thought the awards should have gone to someone else, definitely let me know down below in the comments. I absolutely love hearing from you guys, so don't forget to comment, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all of your friends to help boost this channel in the algorithm. This has kind of been the first full year of MMA Mystic in 2025. Before that, I was posting these videos on my other channel, so now it has its own dedicated channel, and I hope every year this channel gets better and better. Hopefully I learn more tricks with the editing. I can make these videos spicier for you guys, or if you guys know how to edit and you guys want to work on this channel with me, definitely reach out to me in the comments section. I would love to work with one of you guys one day. That would be an absolute dream, especially if we get to go to some of these fights at some point in the future. I know I have a pretty small channel right now, but hopefully it keeps growing and growing and growing. I absolutely love doing this for you guys. I love watching UFC. I love talking about it. And yeah, you guys can expect another video like this next year. We'll have the 2026 MMA Mystic MMA Awards. And yeah, I've just had a lot of fun doing this channel this year, and I hope you guys have had fun too. So here's to 2026. Hopefully we see lots of fantastic fights. Hopefully it's the best fight year in UFC history. I know it's probably not likely to happen, but let's hope for it. Let's hope that there's very, very few decisions and lots of knockouts and submissions, and let's have a great year. So I hope you guys all had a great holidays. Let's have a great 2026, and yeah, thank you guys for watching as always. It means the absolute world to me. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.